יושב בסתר, עליון בצל שדי תלונן, אומר לאדוני, מחצי ומצודתי, אלוהי אפתח בו, כי הוא יצליחן מפח יכוש, מדבר עוון בעברתו, יסך לך ותחת כנפיו תחצצינם, וסוחרם עמיתו, לא תירם מפחד לילה, מחץ יבוא יומם, מדבר באופן יהלוך, מכתב ישרו צהריים, יפול מצידך הלב ורבבם, מנך אליך, לוש ייגש ייגש, רק בעיניך תביט בשלומן, רשעים תרם, כי אתה אדוני מקסים עליון, שמתם מעונכם, לא תונם אליך רם, ונגם לא יקרב באהלכם, כי מלאכיו יצווה לך לשמרך בכל דרכיו, לשמרך בכל דרכיו. על מקומו יבוא ושלום. May Kenneth Gumprich, Moshe ben Shlomo Basara, go on to God in peace. There's a time for everything, a season for every activity under the sun. A time to be born, a time to die. A time to plant and a time to reap. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to destroy and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. I'd like to welcome those of you who are joining us online. So nice with modern technology to have you here as well. Thank you so much for honoring his memory. We are here this afternoon to say goodbye to Kenneth Gumprich, Moshe ben Shlomo Basara, brother to Gary Gumprich, married to Diane Dupuis, to Diane Gumprich, married to Kevin Klooster. Kenneth was deceased by his parents, Helmut and Gertrude. Kenneth passed away at the age of 64. His 65th birthday would have been in July of this year. Now, in our tradition, giving a name to someone really ends up being a very fortuitous thing in many ways, because it ends up identifying often who we become as a person. It took a little doing, but I did some research on the English name Kenneth. Moshe we know. And it revealed something very interesting, at least to me, in the discussion that I had with you yesterday. Kenneth revealed the name that it could mean extremes in fortune, health, and spirituality. Kenneth would either enjoy great success or be faced with difficult challenges. You know, when we prepare a eulogy in our faith, it's considered one of the greatest good deeds, mitzvot, that we can do, and there's a reason for that. And that's the person that delivers the eulogy is doing it totally as a selfless act. No one's here to thank him for it, especially Kenneth, although I think he's going to be here and listening to you as well. We're very fortunate that Kenneth's brother Gary is going to share some of the story with him, or about him, with us. So I'll step away from the mic. I think you and I are about the same height, so you should be able to speak to the mic directly.
Thank you. I mean, what do you say about Kenny? The temptation, as I've been thinking about, the temptation is to think about how he was in the last 8 to 10 years of his life, when he had his health issues and a lot of problems, and at times was, shall we say, less than easy to deal with. But I choose not to remember him that way. When we were growing up, working on the farm together and curling together and going on a field trip to BC together and all that stuff, he was my best friend, and we spent a lot of time together. Yeah, we'd squabble and we'd fight, but I would do anything for him and he would do anything for me, and we did a lot of things together, spent a lot of hours together, and that's how I want to remember him, not as what happened to him later on in his life. He had his challenges, but he was determined to look after them themselves, and no matter what anybody said to him, that was the way it was going to be, and that was also Kenny. Stubborn. I've had people tell me they thought I was stubborn until they met him. You know, the other thing that says a lot about Ken is, over the last little while, he's in the hospital, and after what happened, his neighbors, I'd go to his house, and a neighbor would come and say to me, "What's happening with Kenny? We want to know what's happening with Kenny." And he had another older fellow lived next door, and whenever Kenny went in the hospital, I'd get a phone call. "Could you tell me what's happening with Kenny? And could help me what's happening with Kenny?" So that says a lot about the impact he had on people and how people thought of him. You know, so that's all. I didn't want to say a lot. I just want to say I want to remember him. I think we should all remember him as he was. He was just a kind heart, looked after people, would give you the shirt off his back if he could. And that's about it. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Gary, you shared with me one of the challenges that Kenny faced. You said when he was 2 years old, no, I'm sorry, when he was born with a very, very serious disease, a form of diabetes. And so he was very young, getting needles on a regular basis. How old was he when he had the double transplant? 50? Is that right? And after that, the diabetes was gone, but of course he had other health issues. So that was in the 80s, right, when he had his double bypass, or double transfer. 2000? 90s? Anyway, the thing is, though, that it was still a miracle when it happens. I mean, it's a medical miracle that it happened, and it extended, obviously, his life, per se. So from that early challenge, he still remained what was described by Gary. I was told that he was legally blind, you mentioned, and yet he would volunteer at CNIB when he could. He would volunteer other places, again, when his health allowed him to do. Your testimony regarding his neighbors testifies to the fact that this man was very much liked. Yes, he was stubborn. He could be ornery, and I can understand why. With the challenges that he faced, it would not have been an easy life on a regular basis. But there he was, consistently going out and doing the best he can under the circumstances that he had. So for those of you who knew him, for those of you who knew him here, let his memory be a blessing. Let us show that no matter how difficult things are, we can overcome them with strong will, which I think he also showed as well. So thank you again for coming, everyone. It is now the custom that we do a memorial prayer, the El Mali Rahamim, which I will do in Hebrew first, then translate it into English, and then we'll conclude with a couple of psalms. The El Mali Rahamim is often considered by our sages and rabbis as the phone call to the soul, because the name of the person is actually mentioned in it. And if you ever come back to the cemetery and you're looking for something to say, you can say anything you want, whatever's in your heart. But very often, this particular prayer, the El Mali Rahamim, is said in commemoration of the person they were honoring. So here it is. El Mali Rahamim, Shochein Bamromi, Hamatzei Menucha Nachonat Tachat, Kanfi Ashkina, Bemahallot Keroshim Mutchorim, Kezohar Arek Maskerim, Et Nishmat Moshe Ben Shlomo Vesara, Shalach Lelamo, Bagan Ein Temenuchato, Ana Habal Harachamim, Hastirech Besetekenofech Olomim, Utzror Bitzror Achemit Nishmato, Adonai Hunachalato, Vayanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo, Venomar, Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest to your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Kenneth Gumprich, Moshe Ben Shlomo Vesara, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. Before the Mourner's Kaddish, the memorial prayer, I'd like to chant Psalm 23, which is a very common one. I'll do it in Hebrew first and then repeat it in English. We'll then conclude with the Mourner's Kaddish and then invite all of you who are here to help us say goodbye to Ken by covering his grave. Mizmor David, Adonai roi lo echsat. Bino desher yerbat sehni. Al me menuchat yenachalani. Nafshi Yoshovev Yancheni B'maglet tzedek l'man shemo Gam ki elech b'ketz al maveh Lo ira rak yato imadi Shiftecha u'mishantecha hema yanachamuni Taharoch lefanai Shulchan Negeterai Dishanta Vashem et Roshi Kosi Revayam Achto b'chesed yirafuni kol yemei chayam V'shavti b'beit Adonai Leorech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Lord makes me lie down in green meadows, leads me beside refreshing streams, restores my life, guides my righteous paths. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no harm, for the Lord is with me. The staff and the rod, they comfort me. They spread a feast for me in the presence of my foes. Anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Only goodness and kindness shall follow me all the rest of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Prior to saying farewell to Ken by covering his grave, which is another mitzvah that is highly, highly praised in our faith, it is the custom to recite the Mourner's Kaddish, memorial prayer. If you look at the translation in English, this particular prayer has nothing to do with having someone, losing someone, or dying. It has to do with giving us the strength, the inner strength, to remember the person the best possible way. I like to follow the custom of doing the Mourner's Kaddish slowly. You can respond or join with me, whatever is comfortable for you. So let's begin together. Itkadal ve'itkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divra chirutei ve'amlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye d'chol Beit Israel. Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ul'almei almaya. Itbarach ve'ishtabach ve'itboar ve'itromam ve'itnaseh ve'ithadar ve'it'aleh ve'ithalal shmei dekurusha brichu le'ela min kol bichata ve'shirata tush bichata ve'nechemata de'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Israel v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom bimramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel v'imru Amen. To Ken's family who's here, we'd all like to say the following: Hamakom menachem etchem betoch she'ar Avilit Zion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you and all who have mourned for Zion and Jerusalem. And let us all say, Amen. For those of you who have joined us online, thank you so much for joining us. Just want to remind you and everyone else here that for the next 7 days, every morning and evening service, except for Saturday morning, his name will be mentioned in honor of the 7 days of Shiva. So you can always join us if you wish and say Kaddish on his behalf, or just remember him in your own good way to keep his memory alive with us. We are now going to conclude our service with the covering of the grave. The custom primarily is, we'll let the family start, take a shovel, 3 covers full of earth, and then put the shovel back so the person behind you chooses to do it. You don't want to put someone in a difficult spot. Not everybody can do that. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. And then those of you who are here after the family can help by just covering the grave. We will make sure the machinery finishes it all afterwards. So go right ahead. If you're comfortable doing it, thank you again, everybody.